I'll do a quick clap just to... All right, since the last one overran a little bit, we'll just start immediately. Okay, and the screen's turned off. Okay, cool, right. A dashboard of the internet. So, first of all, before I start talking about anything, I went over, who am I? Right, I'm Levi, also known as Harrison, also known as Soy Mills. You might have seen 3 different graphics relating to me because we printed them at different times, and I kept not deciding on what I should be called. Currently a student at BU, but also suffering from employment and in a blood crunch act with the guys from 2600 about running conventions. So what you'll be seeing today in this quick 20-minute talk is what Shodan is, and you might go on a little safari and find something funny, something disturbing, something interesting, and just figure out that the internet is just still a mess despite what companies want you to think. Building this dashboard of the internet that I've lured you all into listening to, and some stats about them. So, Shodan, right? Put your hands up if you've heard of Shodan. Good, most people. So Shodan is essentially another dashboard of the internet, but you're allowed to search by IP address and other things that these IP addresses return. So, for example, you might search for a wide variety of things like open IP cameras or VNC controlled machines. So VNC being another way to remotely control a computer. Some of these are unauthenticated. You might definitely not find unredacted versions of the Epstein files. That's definitely not on the internet. North Korean IP addresses and computers relating to their internet. And obviously metrics about all the other computers, because people want to figure out how their servers are running. So first, open IP cameras, right? So it's surprising how often people leave their cameras unsecured with no password and you can just search camera in Shodan. It'll come up with a list of pictures of things you can find. There's sometimes people's living rooms. Thankfully, there's never anyone in them, at least times I've accidentally scrolled past them. Quite often 3D printers and such. Definitely not drug farms. That's completely legal, I'm sure, in the country where that camera is. Cow farms, where they've also left the controls for the lights inside the farm enabled. So you get some interesting footage. You've also got VNC-enabled machines. So as I said before, another way of remote controlling them, but it's more commonly seen on sort of industrial machines. So there you've got the sludge volume meter. That one's a machine that controls the sludge volume. I don't know what, maybe waste processing facility or something. You've also on there got, you might be able to see B-Sides Bournemouth down there, that comes on a little in the next one. Some other computers, just terminals, more industrial machines. But then you can then also search for whether these are authenticated or not. And so you can log into them without any authentication. Download a VNC client of your choice, type in the IP address, and you can control it. It's really just that simple. And so I would never do anything like that, because that's illegal under the Computer Misuse Act. You'd never access anything without authorization. But it so happens that one of these VNC machines was running Firefox. And so it so happened to browse by itself to B-Sides Bournemouth website, just to show you that it does appear on Shodan that you might have visited that website. There's also some other stuff like this website, computer.web, computer.web VNC Resolver is a little project someone runs that allows you to randomly go through a list of open VNC machines that they've found. It's just a little project to help bring awareness to how unsecured they are. And so this one here, you can't really read the text from that back there, but at the top it does say United, as in United Airlines Staff Management. So there's, yeah. So, you know, I imagine that's quite an old screenshot, considering that UI looks like it's from 2019, maybe the 1800s, I can't tell. But what else? Yeah, definitely not the Epstein files and some other stuff. So some people like to host their files on the internet. You'll get file directories. You can search for these by a common search term of index of /files. You search that in Shodan, and you'll find lots of servers that have their indexes publicly exposed. And some of these contain interesting things. Right, let's read out some of them. You got MK Ultra MP4. I don't know what's in there. Jeffrey Epstein Little Black Book unredacted. Yeah. So there are some files in there. You'll probably mostly find people's media preservation servers. It's not piracy. We don't condone piracy around here, right? It's definitely not a convention for pirates. But You'll also find North Korea, as we said before. So you can see all I typed in was country, North Korea, or NK. And what came up was, what is it, KP? No, I think it's NK, their country code. And what you can see is a few of their web pages. So from their, not propaganda, but more, I guess, to allow the outer world to try and see some of the news and maybe change their political views on North Korea. But you can find some interesting pages. And you can see that some of them are running Red Star 4.0 OS, which is a funny little operating system made by North Korea specifically for their computers. It's all hardened and everything. I'm sure you can Google it. There's a lot of information about it, but it's quite interesting that does come up. They're also really vulnerable. Like, Shodan's identified 105 at least CV 9.0 vulnerabilities on that web server alone. So I'm not sure if those are actually actionable or not, but it's funny that they're there anyway. And then computer metrics, coming back to the actual topic of this talk. So I searched node exporter, and what's that, 409,000 results coming up on Shodan? That's quite a few computers, right? So we've got to build the dashboard now, knowing this information and using Shodan to figure out these computers. So the tools we'll be using, Prometheus. Put your hand up if you've heard of Prometheus. Only a few. I imagine you're all sysadmins of some degree or you have a home lab. And, are you right? Oh, the little notification top left. OK, that's fine. Prometheus is an open source computer metrics and data collation platform. It's paired with a program called Node Exporter, where you put that on a computer, you run it, and it will expose metrics over HTTP about that computer. So CPU temperature, disk, writing, network traffic, all that business. And it's great. So you can implement it with lots of other programs, build dashboards, and etc. One of those dashboards you might use is Grafana. Grafana, again, put your hands up if you've heard of Grafana. Most people, that's interesting. Interesting that people have heard of Grafana, but not the metrics that go into it. But obviously, Grafana is a bit more than just using it for Prometheus. You've got hundreds of plugins. It's pretty, it's easy to set up. So I'm sure most of you know this. So now that you know the tools and how we're going to get these IP addresses, just using the Shodan CLI, so the command line interface tool you can download, or just curl, searching for the phrase that you saw earlier, node exporter, and it only downloaded 287,000 IPs. I know, it's a little sad. It's only 250,000. But yeah, and I thank my unnamed enterprise sponsor that allowed me to use their key to do this, because the personal keys don't have enough space to download 287,000 IPs. So once you've downloaded all those IPs, you might try and set them up together, and then you run out of memory. OK. Yeah, so setting up the dashboard, running it, I went, oh, OK, I'm only connecting to some of the computers out of all of the 287,000 I've downloaded. And then I go to check Task Manager, why my computer is slowing down, and I've hit 99% memory usage. It's about to blue screen, right? So it has blue screen twice, actually, coincidentally. But in order to fix this later, it may be wise to distribute these across multiple computers and then have only one Grafana so it doesn't break. I tried to set up a nice little dashboard that everyone in here could access, but again, as you might find out, my computer is not anywhere near strong enough to allow more than one visitor at a time, barely touching the dashboard. And the data would keep doing weird things. So did the dashboard work? Sort of, right? Just. So I got some interesting metrics, but I spent quite a while wrangling the computer that was doing the scraping. As I would run it would run fine for about 5 minutes, and then suddenly all the metrics would just disappear from my computer. It's like, oh, OK, wonderful. Just why? I don't know. The highest amount of computers I connected to was 150,000 nodes at once, but I only ever saw that once. So on average, it was more like 20,000 computers connected at the same time, which I think is still not bad, but obviously only a tenth of the 287 that I actually downloaded, which is upsetting. So might come back to this later. But some of the fun stats we found were I calculated all the uptime of all the computers that they've exposed in seconds, and that comes out to a nice, cool 125,000 years of total uptime across 20,000 computers, which is just a little bit, right? So I might need to turn some of them off, reboot them. They've been on far too long. There was some of the nodes exposed a hardware monitor for the CPU temperature being minus 273 degrees Celsius. I don't think that's right. Last time I checked, I couldn't get it to show again. But there was also Germany, which showed a computer being 7,000 degrees Celsius. So you got both ways. You know, maybe they balance each other out, or maybe that's the thing causing global warming. Who knows? What else you got? Oh yeah, and then just the inverse of that graph. So I got the average. I should probably explain what the graph actually says on there. So along the bottom is the 2-digit country codes. Once I scraped the IPs from Shodan, I sorted them into their country codes, added them as jobs for Prometheus to scrape, and that's why it's sorted by their countries. Some of the countries showing constantly 100 degrees C. Maybe that's just their CPUs are just melting. They forgot to turn the CPU cooler on. Maybe they need to repaste it or something. But there was so much more data to sift through. Running it at 5 minutes at a time, I had to keep deleting the data because it would generate, I think, about 20 gigabytes of data in about 5 minutes, which is a bit too much to look through by hand. But I might revisit the project in the future, or if people want to see the data, I can post what I gathered, and also all the IP addresses so people can scrape them themselves with larger distributed computing. But yeah, I'm sure there's more interesting metrics. Like, does anyone want to think of an example, or if anyone wants to shout an example that you might think of that a computer, like a metric related to computers? Because I think are these random computers? Yeah, these are random computers that I found just across the internet that have these metrics. So actually another one there was the total combined RAM of all the computers was 2.42 petabytes of RAM, which is just a little bit.
Yeah, the OSs of the exposed systems.
Yes, that would have been a good one. And then show like maybe like a cloud graph of like all the big words of the different ones. That would have been a good one. See, it's just, I'm not a data scientist, right? So I don't really know what the fuck I'm looking for. And I'm just randomly writing stuff up and clicking buttons and then going, oh, why does this not work? And then restarting the VM over and over again. In the brief it also says, how can you secure some of these nodes? It's not important to have the nodes secured because they only expose HTTP, just a plain text HTTP page with no inputs, so you can't really exploit it if you wanted to. But if you need to, they recently implemented HTTPS with basic authentication, so you can just simply add an extra layer and then prevent people like me from just quickly logging in and scraping it. I don't know why you'd need to do that, but you can, I guess. It might make it slower, but that's really it. It was quite a short talk, but yeah, thank you. I'm surprised that actually this many people came into the room, to be honest. So you've probably got enough time to run over to Will's talk if you want to go see it as well, just the end of it. There's also some of the list of the tools in use there. So there was... Yes, yeah, that's a good one. Questions? Hello.
If somebody gave you a GPU, would that help?
No, unfortunately none of it's really GPU related, or at least if I can make it use a GPU, I don't know how to. I'd have to look more into that. I think the way I should have done it is buy a bunch of smaller VMs, rent a bunch of VMs on the internet, and then spawn lots of Prometheus scrapers on those, and then set those to one region each. So then you have to scrape a smaller amount all at the same time, and then point those all back to one dashboard that would then run a little.